Under the blazing Texas sun, a group of outlaw bikers made a fatal mistake. They chose to threaten the wrong person at Miller's fuel stop. What they couldn't have known. The quiet woman filling up her truck was no ordinary passerby. She was a decorated combat nurse, a veteran of 3 tours in Iraq, and she was about to remind them why you should never judge a book by its cover. The sun hung low over Riverside Junction, stretching long shadows across the cracked asphalt of the 3 highways that gave the small Texas town its name. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline and sun-baked concrete, occasionally broken by a breeze carrying dust from the endless stretch of road. At pump number 4 of Miller's fuel stop, Rachel Connor methodically filled the tank of her weathered Ford pickup. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, revealing features that looked both gentle and hardened by experience. As the sleeve of her light cotton shirt shifted, it exposed the edge of a scar, just one of many marks left behind from her time as a combat nurse in Iraq. Inside the store, Frank Miller, the station's owner, observed her through the dusty windows. He had grown used to seeing her around ever since she moved to town a few months ago. Always polite, paid in cash, and kept to herself, the kind of customer he appreciated. But there was something about the way she carried herself, an ever-present awareness of her surroundings, that reminded him of his own days in Korea. He recognized the look, a person who had seen too much but kept pushing forward anyway. The ancient ceiling fan inside the store spun lazily, barely doing anything to fight the Texas heat. The radio crackled, switching between country music, static, and the occasional weather report. It was a normal afternoon, just like countless others in this quiet part of Texas. But that was about to change. A distant rumble of motorcycles grew steadily louder, building like an approaching storm. Rachel's hand instinctively paused on the pump handle, her body tensing just slightly. Years spent in trauma care and war zones had trained her to trust her instincts. Right now, every one of them was on high alert. 6 motorcycles rolled into the station, their chrome gleaming under the relentless Texas sun. The riders were a rough-looking bunch, clad in leather, their presence alone shifting the entire atmosphere of the quiet station. Each bore the emblem of a coiled serpent with blood-red eyes, the mark of the Iron Serpents, a gang whose reputation had been growing more notorious in these parts. Their leader, a tall man with a thick beard and arms covered in tattoos, was the first to dismount. Jackson, Chains Blackwood moved with a deliberate ease, the kind that hinted at barely contained violence, like a predator surveying its territory. His eyes scanned the station before landing on Rachel, lingering a little too long before he turned to his crew with a smirk. Inside the store, teenage attendant Bobby Thompson watched nervously through the window as the bikers spread out across the station. Frank's hand instinctively drifted beneath the counter, his weathered fingers resting on the shotgun hidden there. Meanwhile, Rachel remained calm, finishing at the pump with steady, deliberate movements. She had faced far worse than this in Baghdad. The heavy sound of boots on pavement approached from behind, but she didn't turn immediately. When she did, Chains was standing too close, his posture clearly meant to intimidate. "Nice day for a drive, isn't it, sweetheart?" he drawled, his voice carrying an edge that made Bobby flinch inside the store. Rachel met his gaze steadily, her response measured. "Just getting gas." Chains chuckled, though there was no real humor in it. "Pretty lady like you shouldn't be out here alone. Roads can be dangerous." He gestured toward his crew, who had strategically positioned themselves around the station, their presence growing more menacing by the second. "Never know what kind of trouble you might run into." Through the store windows, Frank watched the scene unfold, his grip tightening on the counter. He'd seen that look before, back in Korea. The calm before the storm. The moment when everything could change in an instant. Rachel's stance hadn't shifted, but there was something in the way she held herself, a quiet steel beneath the surface. The tension in the air was thick, heavy as the heat waves rising from the asphalt. For a brief second, her mind flashed to a dusty road outside Fallujah. Another moment when the air felt just like this, thick with an unspoken threat. Her voice, when she finally spoke again, carried the same quiet authority of someone who had faced down worse than a gang of bikers. "I appreciate the concern," she said, each word precise, controlled. But I can handle myself just fine. Chain's smirk widened, but there was anger behind his eyes now, the frustration of someone not getting the reaction they expected. He stepped closer, invading her space on purpose. Maybe you don't understand how things work around here, sweetheart, he sneered. See, this is our territory now, and… His words died in his throat the second Rachel's eyes met his. For the first time, he saw what Frank had recognized earlier. The look of someone who had seen real war. Someone who had faced true monsters and survived. Someone who was far more dangerous than they appeared. The atmosphere at Miller's fuel stop shifted, as if a rattlesnake had just coiled, ready to strike.